Ratchet is a clothing company from the UK started by a young man with a vision, a dream, and determination. They have various prints and styles for men, women, and children. I'll include a link to their website down below in the description for this video. I hope everyone's enjoying their day today and keeping things positive. Positive thoughts bring positive outcomes. Today we're going to be talking about an interaction I had with a Colombo associate. Let's get to it. So Mikey Grok, who I mentioned in the past, was an associate of mine. He introduced me to his childhood friend, Jojo Russo. He was a heavy-set guy and he previously had bypass surgery, but he was still a big guy. I also had a childhood friend by the same name, but it's a different guy. Anyway, Mikey and this Jojo grew up in Deer Park, Long Island. Jojo's father, I think his name was Louis, was either an associate or a member of the Colombo family. So I go to this Jojo Russo's house with Mikey Grok. At the time, I was a newly inducted member into the Lucchese family. And you meet a lot of guys, and usually you could tell who's straightened out, an inducted member or not. And my first impression of Jojo Russo was he definitely wasn't straightened out. But the more I listened to him talk and the way he carried himself, he was acting as if he was. And in his mind, I was just a guy that Mikey was away with, and we were both away together. So at one point, he suggested that we all go out to eat, and he picked the restaurant Mateo's. There's several Mateo's. There's one in Howard Beach. They're owned by different people, but this particular Mateo's was in Belmore, Long Island. And Jojo had a friend of his who was a part owner by the name of Tony. He happened to be a nice guy. So at the table while we were eating, Jojo's bringing up a lot of things, and one of the things he brought up was his time that he spent away. I assumed prison. And he went on and on about how bad it was to be locked up and how it sucked in there. At one point, he mentions a friend of his, Pete Bartolomeo. Now, what he didn't know was Pete was not only a friend of mine, but Pete was also my associate. So I said to him, really, I was away with Pete. I would love to talk to him. I said, do me a favor. You think you could call him for me? Now, I didn't need Jojo to call Pete because I spoke to Pete every day. So he takes his phone out and he calls Pete and he says something to the effect of, I have somebody here that wants to talk to you. I take his phone and walk away from the table, and of course Pete recognizes my voice right away. The first thing he says to me is, what's that blowjob doing with you? So I ask Pete, what's up with this guy? And he starts to tell me about him, and I mention that the guy said he was away, and Pete starts laughing. He says, he told you that? I said, I just told you, he said he was away. He said, John, the jerk-off did like 3 months in county jail. For those of you who don't know, county jail is much different than being in prison. Now, while I was on the phone with Pete, Jojo turns around and asks Mikey Grok how long I was away for. So Mikey tells him I did 17 years, and he turns around and tells Mikey, gee, I feel stupid talking about being locked up now. He knows he was in county jail. So Pete wanted me to give the guy back the phone. He wanted to talk to him. I said, Pete, don't embarrass the guy. And I gave him back the phone. And I know Pete told him who I was because after he hung up, not only was he very quiet and he was done bragging, but he was ultra respectful with me. After that day, there came a time when I called for him to meet with me. I wanted him to relay a message for me. Jojo Russo was around an old-time Colombo captain named Ralphie Lombardo. So the first thing he says to me when we meet in the diner's parking lot is, I told Ralphie I'm meeting you. I said, okay. He said, Ralphie told me to meet with you and to see what you wanted. So I smiled at him. I said, Joe, take it easy. I only want you to send a message for me. And I gave him the message, and he did wind up sending the message. That was the last time that I seen Jojo Russo. But fast forward a few years later, I'm meeting with Ralphie Di Matteo, who I was close with, and we're meeting in a Starbucks. We always met in this one particular Starbucks. Presently, Ralphie's the consigliere for the Colombo family. Back then, Ralphie was part of Ralphie Lombardo's crew. So during the course of our conversation, he brings up Jojo Russo and asks me if I knew him. I tell him, yes, I met him years ago. Then he asks, what do you think of him? So I smiled. I said, Ralphie, why are you asking me that? He said, well, we're looking to do him, which means that they're looking to straighten him out. And that's why he was asking. When I heard that, internally I was shaking my head, but I just said to Ralphie, he's all right. He asked me, is there anything you want to tell me? I says, no, Ralphie, he's all right. I was taught in that situation not to badmouth the guy. Unless you knew the guy was a rat, let somebody else badmouth the guy. After meeting him that time in the restaurant, I remember having a conversation with somebody in our family who knew both Jojo and Jojo's father. They spoke very highly of Jojo's father. When I explained the way he was acting, the guy turned around and said he should have never acted that way. And what he meant by that is acting like he was straightened out when he wasn't. But there's a lot of guys that act like that in the street, but it's only a matter of time before they get exposed for who they are or who they're not. As I mentioned, I never seen JoJo again. I thought I heard something that he passed away. I don't really even know if that's true or not. I hope not. He was a younger guy. And I don't know if the Colombos ever straightened him out or not. By the way, I did a previous video about Don Pepe. Someone asked me to score it, which I didn't do. I would give it a 7-9. And as far as Mateo's and Belmore, I'll give it a 7-7. But I highly recommend both restaurants. If you like this video, you could hit the like button, and I appreciate those who do. I'll end it with some dishes from Mateo's. You can subscribe to the Sit Down News blog at sitdownnews.com, and I appreciate everyone who has subscribed. Thank you. Well, just another example in the mob you never knew about. Hope you enjoyed the story. If you would like to subscribe to this channel, you could do so down below. If you would like to subscribe to my other channel, Unlimited Substance Podcast, I'll add a link in the description to this video.